Think of the people you interact with every day. Would you want to spend a day in a canoe with them? I'm Nathan Mercero, and as a financial advisor with over 25 years of experience, I've learned that the quality of the people you spend time with is a lot more valuable than what can show up in a set of financial projections. And growing up in Canada, I discovered you can learn a lot about a person when you spend a day in a canoe with them. So I created this show where I interview people I find interesting and inspiring. I invite you to listen in and learn from their stories so you can create the life you want, one filled with wealth, wisdom, meaning, and purpose. Well, I'm delighted today to spend time with Rod Meloni. Rod is a Emmy Award-winning business editor for the NBC affiliate WDIV Local 4, and he's also a certified financial planner, which is an incredibly unique designation given his field. So, Rod, welcome to Day in a Canoe. You have a very interesting job. I've had an opportunity to see a little bit of what you do on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you could just unpack what is it that you spend your typical day doing, and then maybe some background around how you got into the reporting world.
Well, okay. Our day usually starts with a 9 o'clock editorial meeting. We're required to bring stories to the table that are not in the newspaper. In other words, you need to have talked to people, you need to have got information, you need to know about certain things. Maybe you get an email or something like that. You pitch that, and then my editors will assign two stories to me and all the other reporters on the meeting. And then we head out, execute, go live, and then go home. I mean, that's the day in a nutshell. Sounds easy, but it depends on the stories you get assigned and where you end up live, because we do have to go live at 5 and usually again at 6, sometimes 5 and 5:30. But we can be assured that there are going to be two stories that turn every day, unless there's some outstanding circumstance. Like last Friday, we were working on a special project about child protective services and their inability to be forthcoming, transparent, and otherwise helpful to people, families in need. So that would be a normal day. How did I get in it's funny. I was thinking about this as a child. I'm old enough that when we were kids, that if the TV broke, you didn't just go out and buy another one. It sat in a cabinet, and they would pull it out and ship it off to the salespeople, and then or the repair people, and then bring it back and put it back in the cabinet. And in my house, when the TV was gone, I would climb inside the cabinet and be on TV. And I remember doing that about 3 or 4 years old, something like that. And my mother always figured that there was something to that, and so it was clear early on that this was something that I wanted to do. By the time I got to high school, I knew it was, and we started a radio station in my high school. We convinced the principal to give us a bathroom, not a bathroom, like a closet in the dressing rooms backstage at our high school. And we got a local radio guy to help us, and we got some turntables and a VU meter and a mixing board and some records, and we would play music in the cafeteria and play radio during lunch, or during the school day anyway. And I think I was elected program director like my freshman year, and we did that until my friends decided that they were going to do things like play the Woodstock album and things like that, and they kind of shut us down. But I knew then that that's what I wanted to do. Back then you had to work in radio to be in TV. So I got into college, went right to work in commercial radio, did commercial radio right on through my years going to college. I worked in Providence on the overnight shift at the AM radio station, the All News radio station. And I would hop on the train, go to Boston, go to school, had a job there, take the train home and pass out, and then go back and do it again. And I worked 6 nights a week on the overnight shift to pay for my schooling. So I worked my way through school. And the March 30th of 1981, I believe, was the day that I started in TV news. And that was the day Ronald Reagan got shot. And that sounds bizarre, but I was sitting there talking to a news director telling me how little I was going to make for a living and how I may not be able to quite make the budget. And the sports director leaned in and said, "Are you guys aware that the president's been shot?" And sure enough, there it was. And And so that was, he said, we'll take this up tomorrow. And then he went to work and all of that. So I went out and maybe got a couple of interviews that day, but so that started it all. And I would anchor and report, produce, do all of that. And it turned out that my best skill really was reporting. And so it's just gone that way. So it's now 42 years coming up next month that I'll have been doing this. So
That's impressive. That's impressive. Congratulations. And in
Thank
your
you.
view, what makes a great reporter? What are the characteristics, the qualities that really land someone to be effective
Well,
in the role?
curiosity, certainly, and a willingness to listen. It's funny, Devin Skillian used to say, he said this, and it's funny, colleagues will say things to you and you remember. He said, you can never underestimate or even overestimate the helpfulness of listening. So having your head in a swivel, looking around, listening, maybe putting two and two together. But as much as anything, it's Zig Ziglar used to say that character is what's left after the enthusiasm for a project is gone. And I think the character kind of matters too, because you have to have perseverance. And then even if things start going south on you, or you're not finding what you're looking for, you keep looking, you keep pressing, you keep going until you're either certain it's not a story, or if you are certain it's a story, that you follow it to its logical conclusion within the time frame. Because that's the big issue. As I was saying, we turn 2 stories a day. I don't get a lot of time. You have got to get in and get your story and get out and move on to the next one. So to do this job well, curiosity, perseverance, and really you kind of have to love this business. If you don't like this, you're not going to like this. Working nights, holidays, weekends. I'm on call every 6 weeks. There are a lot of things that go into it. And if you're not sort of steeped in the business, I would advise anybody who doesn't eat, sleep, drink, live this as an existence, then don't do it, because it will you up. And I have seen that over the years, is that if you're not on board, believe me, you will be gone in a heartbeat.
No, I think your outline of what it takes to be successful is really insightful, and that's something that applies to everyone.
Right.
Meaning, know the role that you're in, know what you're great at, know what energizes you, know how to manage your time, manage your effectiveness, and do the thing that you love. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, it's that's the fuel that leads us to so many opportunities that we would never have experienced.
No doubt. I
Now,
mean, go ahead. Go ahead.
what have you seen the whole industry evolve um, around news and reporting, and thinking back to when you started to where we are today? What are some of the trends that you've observed over those number of decades that make things better or not better from your point of view?
The technology has improved dramatically. I mean, heck, when I first started, we were using 3/4 inch videotape. Cameras were, the good cameras probably weighed 25 or 30 pounds, and the deck that hung off your shoulder was another 30 or 35 pounds. Now you can pick up your phone and you can get the same quality video that we used to get back then. So the physical nature of the job has changed. The editing process is quicker now, using the computer editing, as opposed to we used to do tape to tape. You'd stick it in, it would back it up 5 seconds and then play. And then if it messed up, you had to go back and wait another 5 seconds. Now it's just zip, 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 and do that. So the technical functions have made it so that we can move a whole lot faster than we used to. And I like that. But speed isn't always good. We always say it's better to be right than first, because there had always been that pressure. Let's get that sucker on the air. Let's be first with it, and that mattered in years past. And I used to work like heck to be first. Now it's I mean, let's put it this way: you don't want to be wrong in first. You want to be right in first. So my editors will say, "Hey, let's hold off on this until we're doubly certain we know what it is that we have," and that I think has become sort of the calling card, at least for my shop, is that okay, we think we have something. Let's make doubly sure before we go with it, so that we're not giving misinformation, because that is the true definition of misinformation, not perhaps some of the definitions that you might hear otherwise.
Along your journey, you developed an interest in personal finance, and in fact, if I recall, you were the first reporter to get the Certified Financial Planner designation. What led to that track within your career to really focus on the personal finance side of information and reporting and pursuing it?
Sure. I just want to be clear that I was the first working journalist to get it. I guess there were other journalists who had gone into the business and therefore got it, or were CFPs and then went into journalism. But I was the first one to go in the other direction. It was actually a fairly simple thing. I became the business editor at Channel 4 back in the 90s. In 95, I got here. And I was spending an awful lot of time talking personal finance, the stock market back then. That was the internet bubble. And I was interviewing a lot of people, and I didn't have the first idea what I was talking about. And I ended up doing an interview with a CFP, and I asked them, I said, I really feel kind of inadequate here. What do I do to get a well-rounded financial education? He said, well, yeah, go up to Oakland University. They get the CFP program up there. He said, that'd be a great way for you to go and do that. So I said, okay, and had the first idea how difficult that it was going to be. And in fact, that's where we met, because I went to CFP school at Oak University, got my certificate, and was going to take the test. And the first thing I figured out was that my education was about here and the test was about here. And so I had to do a whole lot of re-educating and figuring it all out, because the thing about the CFP exam is it's not so much that you have to know all of the disciplines: taxation, retirement, investments, estate planning, basic economics, but you had to know how it all fits together. So by the time you get to that test and they're asking you questions, you have to synthesize and figure out where to put everything. And that was very difficult for me. That took me quite a while to figure out, but I got over it. And I'm quite proud of the fact that I got there. You certainly were a spectacular help in that process. We went to Ken Zahn's program together. And I count that as the most singularly difficult thing I've ever done, because my job is actually quite easy compared to going and getting past that test and then doing the whole financial planning thing. But what I wanted more than anything was to be able to tell viewers what to understand, how to understand it, make it. And my job is essentially to take information and make it into understandable small bites that people can use on a daily basis. News you can use is the phrase you hear a lot, and it's true, and that's what I definitely try and do on a daily basis. And so we have a thing called the Money Minute, and I do that once a week. Give a quick, money piece that I do. It's a tough taskmaster. In fact, I've only got one recorded through next week, so now I've got to come up with another the rest of the year. Have to come up with some Money Minutes. So I constantly find myself looking for topics to put in that place, because I try and be current, and also stuff that you wouldn't normally see in the media in terms of personal finance, of things you should be thinking of, and how to get there. And then, of course, you help me at the end of the year. We do a thing called year-end money, where we sort of, when I'm on vacation, they like to have me leave behind pieces. And so you've been kind enough to help me with that over the years. So we really try at Channel 4 to give people good information, news that they can use in terms of personal finance that might be cut above where else, what they're going to get, even on the business channels like, say, CNBC. Now, I've been on CNBC. They've asked me to do stuff for them in the years past. But if you watch CNBC, it really doesn't help you at all with personal finance. And so I try and, sort of give that news you can use angle to it.
Well, it's been impressive how you've dove into an area of personal finance that was not your first calling, and the resilience that you showed through studying for the exam was incredibly impressive. So I think it speaks volumes to your character.
I like to say that you don't go into journalism because you're good at math.
Well, it's another example of making sure that the things that we put our our minds to are the things that energize us. And I think there will be obstacles, there will be challenges that life
Mhm.
brings. And I think you're a living testament to dealing with adversity, dealing with challenge, and with the intense job that you have already in the media field. I think it just multiplies the challenge behind
Well,
getting
thank you.
a
Yeah, it
professional
was
designation.
perseverance matters, and from that's kind of been my calling card. I mean, I'm not to be immodest here. That's if nothing else, I have perseverance.
Well, that's actually a great comment, and I'd like you have real world experience on a number of fronts in a very intense industry in the media industry. You have a passion for helping people with personal finance. What are some of the life lessons that you've learned along the way? If perseverance is one, maybe expand on that. If there's others that come to mind, because I think it's important to pause at moments and reflect on really what we've learned along the
Mhm,
way,
mhm.
and to also pass those learnings on where there's opportunities.
Well, it's funny. I think about this and I think about with my kids. And one of the things that I really wanted my kids to understand is what it takes to attain excellence. And I've won some awards and that's fine. But the persistence and the consistency of whatever it is that you're doing. In other words, you can't just be good, every other day or every third day. It's about, in my estimation, seeking excellence in what you do on a daily basis and really do as well as you can do every day. And so I think that if there's a life lesson at all, that's the one that I would want to pass along to people is that it's not good enough to just skim across the water. You want to work hard at getting better and attaining and achieving excellence on a scale that can leave you sleeping well at night. I thought of an interview that I did early on when I was working on radio before I really got heavy into news. I interviewed Harry Chapin. Remember the old Cats in the Cradle singer? And he always talked about when I did the interview, and I think back on it now, he talked about the whole thing about if you extend yourself, if you expend yourself and work as hard as you know how and give it your best shot, and maybe you didn't do a great job that day, but you tried to make that happen, tried to attain excellence. He says at some point you're going to sleep the sleep of the dead. That you go and you expend yourself in that endeavor and be as good as you can be, and maybe over time you develop excellence. He says that's how you end up at the end of the day sleeping the sleep of the dead, and that's what I strive to do. And I think that that that's one of my calling cards is that I will give every ounce of energy I have until the day is done and then pass out.
Well, Rod, those are inspiring words, and the greatest thing that inspires is your life example. And I think that is something that we each person listening to this conversation will have as a takeaway, that our lives that we live will always be filled with challenges, but it's how we respond to that adversity, how we respond to that challenge, is really what matters.
If you were to wake my kids up at 3 in the morning and ask them to finish the sentence, how do I put it? It's not what happens to you fill in a sentence. It's how you respond. That's a big Zig Ziglar line that I've stolen over the years, but it's absolutely certain. It knocks you off your pins. You get up, you dust yourself off, and you move on. And figure out where you need to move on. I mean, I joke about it in our business. You're nothing until you've been fired or sued. I've never been sued, but I have been fired. And what getting fired taught me 30 years ago was I wasn't good enough and I needed to get better. And so it's a question of how do you respond? Are you going to blame everybody else for the fact that you get fired? Or are you going to look in the mirror and decide, okay, I messed up here. I wasn't good enough. I need to get better. Let's go to work on that. And that's what I did way back then. So that was, truth be told, it was no fun, but it was a blessing in many ways for me to turn my life and change it in a different direction and get better.
Well, Rod, I want to thank you for sharing those insights. I think those are profound takeaways. I want to wish you all the best. Thank you for the reporting that you do. Thank you for focusing on helping people with personal finance. And I want to wish you a great day and a great rest of the year.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, and I'm grateful. And I feel flattered that you would include me in your trip in a canoe. It was lovely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening and tuning in today in a canoe. We're thrilled to have you as part of our community. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share it with your friends and loved ones. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on social media platforms by searching Day in a Canoe. We'll see you next time.